Everyone, it's Yuto from tbsp.com, and today I'm gonna show you how to make a Japanese meat and potato stew we call Nikujaga. This warming dish is a classic example of Japanese home cooking. It takes about an hour and serves 2 to 3 people, so let's get started. First, I'm gonna peel the vegetables. In this recipe, I'll be using 3 medium potatoes and 1 medium carrot. Potatoes are called jagaimo in Japanese, and that's where the jaga part comes from in the name of this dish. Next, we're gonna cut them. I cut the potatoes into quarters. Make sure not to cut them too small, otherwise they're gonna cook too quickly and fall apart in the broth. Once they're cut, drop them into a bowl of cold water to remove the excess starch. The carrots should be rough chunks like this, again not too small. Next, I have half an onion. I've already peeled off the skin and I'm just gonna cut it into thick wedges like this. Finally, for the meat, it's up to you whether you use beef or pork, but I'm using 200 grams of thinly sliced pork. Even though it's already thinly sliced, I'm just gonna cut it up a bit smaller so that you get a bit of meat in every bite. Choose meat with some fat on it. The fat is gonna melt into the broth and make it extra flavorful. Now the prep is done, we can start cooking. Take a deep pan or pot and heat on medium. Add a drizzle of oil and then add your meat. We just want to seal the surface to lock in the flavour. This thinly sliced pork cooks very quickly, but if you're using thicker meat, you don't need to worry about cooking it all the way through. Once it's sealed, add your onions. The onions are gonna cook in the meat juices, which is an added bonus. This is why I like using fatty cuts of meat for Nikujaga. After a few minutes, add the carrot and potatoes. Just mix those around and then we add 400 milliliters of dashi. Dashi is a kind of Japanese soup stock and it adds authentic flavor to Japanese cooking. This is actually my homemade dashi. It's so good and very easy to make. I have the recipe on my channel if you want to check it out. Once the dashi starts to bubble, turn the heat down to simmer and add 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, 50 milliliters of mirin and 50 milliliters of sake. There's no need to mix it because now we're gonna place a Japanese style droplet on top. In Japanese, this is called otoshibuta and it sits on top of the ingredients while the broth is simmering. Not only is this gonna push the flavors all around the pan, but it stops the liquid from evaporating too much and stops the ingredients from drying out. I made this droplet from baking paper, but you can also use foil. Check out how to make it. I have a short tutorial video on my channel. Anyway, we leave this to simmer for 30 minutes on a low heat. Anyway, 30 minutes have passed and I'm adding 100 grams of blanched Konnyaku noodles and 40 milliliters of soy sauce. Tilt the pan to spread the soy sauce around and put the droplet back on for 5 minutes. Konjac noodles are optional, but they need to be blanched for a few minutes to remove the unwanted odor. Now this next step is optional if you have time, but I recommend taking the pan off the heat, letting the Nikujaga cool to room temperature and then heating it up again. I'm gonna follow this step, so I'll set it aside for about an hour. This step adds between 30 minutes to an hour to the cooking time, but it's so worth it because the ingredients soak up extra flavour while the broth becomes more complex. It's a common technique used in Japanese simmered dishes, but it's up to you. Okay, it's been about an hour, so I'm gonna put my Nikujaga back onto the stove on a medium heat and bring it to boil. While it's reheating, I'm gonna prepare the garnish. I'm using snow peas, so I just pull out the stringy bit first. Once that's done, you'll need to blanch them in boiling water for a minute. And then run them under cold water to cool them down. Cut them into diagonal pieces like this, and we'll just sprinkle them on the top at the end. They just add some vibrant colour to a pretty dull looking dish. They're nice and crunchy too. Okay, that's done, so we're just gonna finish cooking the Nikujaga. Remove the drop lid and then use a spoon or ladle to scoop up the broth and pour it over the vegetables. Do this for a few minutes. At this point, I'm gonna add extra 2 teaspoons of soy sauce for the final touch. When you add extra to the pan to distribute it, try not to mix Nikujaga itself, it can make the ingredients break. Okay, this looks good, let's dish up. Put it in a bowl and sprinkle it with snow peas, and that's it. A classic example of Japanese home cooking, Nikujaga. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recipe, make sure to like and subscribe. I have more delicious Japanese recipes on my channel, so feel free to check them out. Hope to see you again in the next video. Thanks again.